Hello, it's John here from the Body Engineers, and in today's workout I've got a cool little lower body dumbbell workout that we're going to do. So what we're going to do for this workout is we're going to do 4 exercises in a sequence, 2 rounds in total for 50 seconds each exercise, followed by 15 seconds rest. Then we've got another series of 4 exercises that we're going to do. Same format, 50 seconds work, followed by 15 seconds rest. So what we're going to do to start with is I'm going to go through a couple of little quick warm-up exercises. Then I'm going to show you the exercises for the first series of exercises. Then we're going to get into it, do 2 rounds. Then I would recommend, if you have the time, to then go and do a 3rd round by rewinding the video and then watch it and doing it again. And then I'll explain the next series of exercises. So to start with, what I'm going to suggest you do is you do a quick little warm-up sequence that I'm going to show you right now, which is going to start from the feet and going to work our way up a little bit. So because the feet are so important when it comes to everything that happens above the body, it's really important to make sure that you do warm up and optimize your feet as best as possible. So the first thing that we're going to do is just roll the feet in and out. So you're going to keep the toes flat on the ground, and then all you're trying to do is just flatten the arch in and out. And as you do that, you should see that the knee, the lower leg, the knee and the thigh turn inwards. And if you do that both sides, if you're keeping the feet straight ahead and the toes down on the ground, just gradually increase the speed. So you're just trying to arch the foot, flatten the foot, arch, flatten, like that. Faster as you can, with control, and then you should feel these muscles around here warming up quite a bit. And this is a really good exercise to do if you want to get good at balance or anything like that. And also for one of the exercises we're going to do during this, or a couple of the exercises we're going to do, is when it comes to lunges, is the position of your foot makes a difference in how it might feel in your knee and hip. So you might want to rotate at the hip like this as you're doing something, and it does the same thing as flattening and arching the feet like this. So you're just rotating at the hip will flatten the arch, and then if you rotate the hip this way, it will arch the foot. So you might want to change your trunk position during a couple of the exercises we're going to do, and that might actually make a difference on how it feels in your knee and hip. So then the next thing we're going to do is a plantar-flexion and dorsiflexion. So plantar-flexion is just going onto your toes, squeezing the calf muscles, and then you're going to come up onto your heels, lifting the feet up and squeezing the front of the shins. So right up the top, and then onto your toes, squeeze the calf, and then onto your heels, squeeze the shin muscles, the tibialis anterior, and then so you're rocking back and forth. So hold on to something just for support, just to make sure you're not moving around. And you want to keep your hips completely still. You don't want to be, as you're lifting the toes up, pushing your hips back like that, because then you're not really lifting the foot up very much. You're trying to bring essentially the top of the foot towards your knee as close as possible, although you won't obviously get that far. So a few more seconds. And then we're going to go into just hip rotations, so just warming up the hip, particularly the deep muscles. So you're just keeping the leg completely straight, turning out, and then turning in like that. So you're just doing it nice and squeezing at the end, and you can gradually increase the speed. So you turn out, squeeze at the end, turn in, squeeze, and then you're trying to make sure that your hip doesn't move at the same time. So you're just trying to move leg on pelvis. So the pelvis stays still and the leg is moving. And then you do the same thing on the other side. So keep the leg straight, turn out, turn in, turn out, turn in. This is like a fundamental movement of the hip, and so you really want to make sure that you can isolate it as best as possible and feel it in the right place. You should feel it deep into the hip as you turn out like that, kind of more in the back, and as you turn in, a bit more maybe in the inside of the leg. And then just lastly, just some knee flexion. So if you keep the hip extended, bringing the leg up as high as you can, so you're squeezing your hamstrings, and then you're bringing it forward, squeezing your quads, and then extend back and squeeze the hamstring. You can do little pulses up and down like this, so you really fire up the hamstring as much as possible, and then you're just going to bring it forward and squeeze the quads like this. So this is really simple, but just warming up the muscles a little bit. And then you can do the same thing on the other side, is extend the leg, and then extend the hip, and then extend the leg, and then hip. So you're squeezing the hamstring, firing it up at the top. So you're trying to make sure you extend the leg, extend the hip first, and then curl the leg up, and then you extend the knee as well to fire up the quads. Okay, so that's the end of this quick little warm-up. You could do that for a bit longer if you feel necessary. So what we're going to do for the first 4 exercises, or essentially it's 3, is we're going to do a dumbbell stationary lunge. So you're going to need some dumbbells for this. Obviously, if doing a stationary lunge is hard by itself, then you don't need the dumbbells. You can just do it body weight. So you're going to be in a split stance like this. You're going to let the knee go forward a little bit, drop down, and then you're just pushing into the ground with your front leg as much as you can and extending at the top. So you're keeping the body nice and upright, pushing through the ground, and you should feel this quite a lot in the glutes, particularly if you really try to focus on pushing it away from the floor to activate your glutes and the quads as well. So we're going to do that 1 round on each side, and then we're going to go into a more of a hamstring dominant exercise, which is going to be a stiff leg deadlift or a standing hip flexion, where you're going to squeeze your shoulders together. So we're doing it with the hands by your sides, and then feet are going to be hip width apart and straight ahead, and then you're just pushing the hips right back into this position, trying to feel that stretch in the hamstrings. And you want to make sure that the back stays nice and neutral and straight for this. You see how my back is not rounding, and I'm just moving at the hips. So you're just trying to find that stretch in the hamstrings. And then, so that's the 2 main exercises that we're going to do. Then we're going to do something for the front of the lower legs, which you probably haven't done before, very much at least, which is actually very beneficial for a lot of things. So I would really recommend doing it. So all you need for this is 2 bands, which I've attached to a squat rack, but you can attach it to essentially anywhere. You're going to place them over your feet, and then, oops, hard to get in position. So place them over the feet. Make sure they're kind of over the bottom of the big toe, and then you're just going to bring them out far enough that there's enough of a stretch, and then you're just letting the foot plant go forward, and then you're bringing the feet up and in slightly. So you're trying to really squeeze this muscle here, and then let it go down a little bit, up, down, and up like that. So this is a bit more of this is a very isolated exercise, but this muscle typically gets very weak from improper shoe wear, and so I would really recommend doing this and really trying to strengthen it as much as possible. And you can obviously use a heavier band if you want to make it harder. And this gives you a nice little rest in between the other 2 exercises, which are more challenging. Okay, so that's the exercises that we're going to do for the first series of exercises. So we're going to start with the stationary lunge. I've got my timer here. We're going to do 50 seconds of work, followed by 15 seconds of rest. 4 rounds, 4 exercises, 2 rounds in total, starting in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So we're going to start with the stationary lunge first. So you're going to grab dumbbells, or you can do body weight, of course, if that's challenging enough. So knee forward a little bit, drop down, and then push into the ground and extend. So try not to rest too much at the top. And you could hang more at the bottom, and you will feel this hamstring, glutes, quads, pushing into the ground. And if you kind of pulse at the bottom as well, it's going to make it a lot harder. But as I said as well, like if you're having trouble with your knees, you could push the hip out to the side a little bit, as I was talking about during the warm-up, and that may change how it feels on your knee and hip. Okay, and then you can drop the dumbbells down for a second, just to rest your hands a little bit, and then we're going to go to the other side. So, same setup. So you're going to have the other leg in front this time. I'll do it over here, and then the other leg back. So you're just bending both legs as you go down and driving through the floor, thinking of leg pressing the floor away to come back up. Now, if you have trouble with balance, Then I would recommend holding onto something. Instead of holding 2 dumbbells, hold 1 dumbbell, and then, just to make sure you're not wobbling around too much. And then slowly down, push through the floor, and then back up again. Push, that's it, and then lean back, making sure you're pushing through the whole foot, not just your toes. And then straight down again. Good, and that's it. So then rest for a few seconds. I'm actually gonna increase the weight a little bit. I mean, typically you probably would need more weight than 25 pounds for this exercise, but just for video purposes, I'm gonna use these. So you're gonna squeeze the shoulders together, feet are hip width apart, pointing straight forwards, and then you're just pushing the hips right back. So as the trick with this one is to keep your shoulders together as you're bending forward and finding that stretch in the hamstring. And then driving back up, and not around the lower back. You're trying to keep the back as straight as possible, and you're just moving at the hips. So you're trying to separate hip motion from spine motion. And that helps by keeping the shoulders by the hands by your sides. Typically this exercise is done with the dumbbells in front, which will probably feel a little bit more challenging for the hamstrings, but it's harder to keep your back straight. So you're just pushing the hips right back and then back down again. Okay, so then you can put these dumbbells onto the ground. Then we're gonna go to the dorsiflexion exercise. So you're gonna place the bands over your feet, and then you're gonna scooch back, making sure you keep tension in the bands. Make sure you have enough tension. So you let the bands go forward slightly. Make sure the knees point straight up, and then you're coming up and in slightly, and then down just a little bit. And if you want to make this really hard and really burn a bit more, you can just pulse up and down like this. And sometimes it's better to actually do one leg at a time, so you can really focus on that one side. But for this purpose, we're going to do it both together. So you're just really trying to find that top where you really feel it right here, and maybe a bit lower down you might feel it as well. So really trying to squeeze and then slowly back. Good. Okay, that's the end of the first round. So we're going to go back to the stationary lunge in a few seconds. So grab the dumbbells again. Now if you want to make it, I'm actually going to do 25 this time. So if you want to make it a bit harder, add extra weight. So one foot in front of the other, lean back, slowly go down, push through the floor as you're going. So push, and again, if you want to make it harder, if you don't have heavy enough weight, then spend more time at the bottom. Don't fully extend the leg, and it gets really hard. Push. That's it. Push. Keep going. And rest there. Something on my nose. Getting itchy. Okay, and then other side. So grab the dumbbells again. Other foot in front. And then just on your toes on the back leg. Oop. And then knee forward just a little bit. And then dropping straight down, leaning back. That's it. Pushing into the ground. Push. Really focus on pushing the floor away. And you can do smaller range at the bottom to make it harder. And it really starts to burn. Whoop, losing my balance. That's it. That's hard when you do it with smooth motion and holding at the bottom more. It's a lot harder. So then we're going back to the Romanian deadlift, not the dorsiflexion just yet. So grab the dumbbells again, squeeze the shoulders together. Feet are going to be straight ahead. And make sure your knee caps are pointing straight ahead as well. And then squeeze the shoulders, push the hips right back. Try and find that stretch in the hamstring. Pause at the bottom and drive back up again. Key is to keep the back nice and straight. If you have no problem keeping your back straight, then you could have the dumbbells in front. If you can easily separate hip from spinal motion, and then drive back up. And you're almost like doing an anterior pelvic tilt as you go down, as long as you don't feel the lower back too much. And then drive back up. Okay, good job. And then back to the band dorsiflexion exercise. So place the bands over the top, over your feet. Scooch right back with them on. Further, obviously, you go, the harder it's going to be. So again, keep the knees straight up, and then you're just coming up and in. And same with the stationary lunge. If you just do this small motion like this at the top, you're really trying to squeeze your tibialis anterior, which is this muscle here, as much as possible. Then it starts to burn quite a bit. And you might even want to do a little bit longer than the 50 seconds we're doing to really get enough out of it, depending on the strength of the band. And also you want to make sure, my band is a bit low here, you want it to make sure it's kind of over the big toe joint, kind of right there. Good, and that is the end of the first round of exercises. So we're going to have a really quick break, and then we're going to get into the next series where I'll quickly show you the exercises, and then we'll get straight into it. I'll see you in a second. All right guys, so for the second series of exercises, we've got another 4 exercises. So we're going to need a step for this, or a chair, depending on what you've got at home. So we're going to do a front step up. So for this one, keep the foot straight ahead, and then make sure that you push your hip out a little bit, and then you just drive into the platform to step up. And as you go down, you bring the knee forward, hip back, and you keep the back leg completely straight, and just tap the heel on the ground. So it looks like that. So I'm not, any kind of movement or any kind of pushing off with the back toes like that is going to make it significantly easier. So if you want to make it harder, make sure that you don't use your back legs at all. And then for the next exercise, we're going to do a front squat with dumbbells. So I'm using some strips here to elevate my heels a little bit. So I would recommend doing that when you're doing a front squat, because it's easier to keep a more upright position. So you're going to place the dumbbells on your top like this, on top of your shoulders, elbows up, squeeze the abs, and then just driving knee forward, hip back, keeping the abs nice and tight. Pause at the bottom and then drive back up. So if you find this one uncomfortable on your shoulders, then you can also do it inside of the legs like this, depending on whether you prefer a wider stance with your squat, or if, depending on your hips, you prefer a more narrow one, then you could do it at the sides like this. So it just depends on kind of how it feels on your specific hips. And then for the last one, we're going to do a calf raise, which can be with dumbbells or without. So we're going to do double leg for this, but if it's too easy, then you could do a single leg. And the main thing is, I'm using like a little device here, so if you have something like this at home, I'd recommend using that, because it just feels a bit more comfortable on the toes. So we are going to start in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So we're starting with the step up first. So you're going to start with the right leg. Make sure the foot's straight ahead. Lift the toes on the back leg. and then you're driving up. So you're just tapping heel, drive back up. Now if you have the ability to change the height of your step, then you want to make it as high as you can without having to need to use the back leg to help you to step up, because it's significantly harder. So you're trying to get the knee forward, hip back, tap the heel, push into the ground to come back up. That's it, 10 more seconds. Tap, drive back up. So when you actually do this for the first time, you'll really notice just how much harder it is to do it when not using the back leg at all. So then you're going to line up the other leg, make sure the foot's straight ahead. Again, you can hold on to something for support, particularly if you have trouble balancing. I would really recommend doing that. And then you're driving into the floor, come back up, tap the heel on the ground, push, the knee forward, hip back. That's it. Actually feels easier on this side than the other side, so you might notice that as well. That's it. Just tap the heel, keep the back leg as straight as you can. There, and then push. And if you don't need to hold on something, then you don't have to. But you don't really want to be focusing on balancing, particularly if you don't feel it in the right place or you're having trouble feeling it in the right place. Because mostly you want to feel this in the glutes and then maybe a little bit in the quads. So then we're going into the front squat with the dumbbells. So you're going to grab the dumbbells and you're going to need a decent amount of weight for this, depending on your strength. So you're just leaving them, put them on the top of your shoulders. Feet are going to be slightly wider than hips, depending on how it feels on your hips. And driving the knees forward, keep the elbows up, and drive into the floor. So having the heels elevated allows you to get a bit more range. It certainly does for me because I have tight ankles. If you have like lots of dorsiflexion in your ankle, then you may not need this. And that's one of the reasons why we did the dorsiflexion exercise in the previous round, was to help with this kind of motion. That's it, knees forward, hip back. And again, if you want to make this harder, you can pulse to the bottom like that and rest. And then back to the calf raise. So you can grab one dumbbell and then you're going to hold on to something for support, and then just put the balls of your feet, if you have a round object like this, put the balls of the feet on the top, and then you're just driving into the floor or into a rounded device, squeezing the calves at the top, making sure it feels even across both heads of the calf. Squeezing at the top, slowly back. That's it. Trying to bring your heel up to your knee. Pause, slowly down. And then back up, pause. A few more seconds. And rest there. So they might be a little bit easy for some people, and if it is, then you could do a single leg version. We have the other leg behind your other leg, and then you'd have to obviously add another round to the workout. Excuse me. And then we've got going back to the step up. So for the second round, so if it was a bit easy the first round, then grab a pair of dumbbells or one dumbbell, and then you can hold on to the squat rack for support. And then it's just tap the heel, onto the ground. And then drive into the platform to come back up. Now again, if you have trouble with your knees or hips, then you might help by pushing the hip out a bit more. So that helps to flatten the foot a bit. Or maybe you need to supinate a bit. If you have flat feet, then you might want to push the hip in a bit and then push into the ground, changing that hip position You can change how it feels in the knee and hip. And then, well, I'm actually going to keep it on the same hand. And then we're going to do the other side. So foot straight ahead, driving into the platform, knee forward, hip back, and then pushing into the ground. Keeping the back leg as straight as possible. Push. That's good. There you go. Tap. Push. Good. A few more seconds. Make sure you're not bending the leg at all, the back leg, as you're lifting. Because then you're using that back leg. It's going to make it easier. And we want to make this workout as efficient as possible. Push, really filling in the glutes. And rest there. Okay, good job. And then going back to the front squats with the dumbbells. So grab the dumbbells, place them on top of the shoulders. If you can, if this is difficult, have them by your sides. And then feet, for me, feels better with slightly wider than shoulder width. And make sure your feet are turned out and in line with the upper thigh. And then driving into the floor. Knees forward, hip back. Now, if you want to make it harder, just pulse at the bottom. Push. Pulse. Push. Making sure you're pushing with the whole foot, but especially the heels with this one. Ooh, it's hard when you pulse at the bottom, that's for sure. And then for the last one, back to the calf raise. So grab one dumbbell or two, depending on your setup. And again, you could do single leg if this is double leg's too easy. So you're just coming right up into the balls of your feet. You don't really need this device, you could do it just on the floor like this. Won't feel quite as good on your big toe potentially, but it's still pretty effective. But if you have something like this, half round shape, it would be perfect. Because then you can come higher up, you need less dorsiflexion of the toes to get right to the top. So if anybody has that limited range, it's not going to feel as good on the floor. Sit all the way up, pause, and then slowly down. And that is it for this workout. So, as mentioned, I would recommend doing that at least one more time. So rewinding it and doing the whole workout again. Also for the first series of exercises, start with 2, then you work your way to 3 sets, and then maybe even 4 sets, depending on how it feels. So let me know what you think by commenting and liking this video at the bottom. And just remember, guys, to be your best you, and I'll see you very soon.
The Body Engineers.